Everything I predicted was wrong. And then I was gonna make a video with more predictions, and a new trailer came out. And now all of those predictions are also wrong. But I'm revising my predictions. We're gonna get into it in this video. Keep watching. Okay, so I've got a lot to talk about in this video. I've got a lot that I've been thinking about over the last few days since my last video went up. And by the way, I got like 10 subscribers. I got like 300 something views. I definitely expected like maybe 5 people to watch that video. So I'm feeling really good about that. Thanks everyone that watched, and especially if you stuck all the way through. So about that video, if you haven't seen it, it's really easy to find. Just click on my channel. It's the only other video that's available. But I'm not going to make you watch that. I'm not going to even ask you to watch that. It's my first video, so the editing was pretty bad. The theory is so out there, like I didn't even really think it was going to happen. And then of course today, at least the time I'm filming this, it's Friday. And I think this trailer that I'm talking about either came out today or yesterday. I can't even remember. Today's been a pretty long day for me. But the trailer comes out, and now basically everything that I theorized is pretty much completely disproven. Like, it's definitely not possible. And everything that I was going to talk about related to the Korok is also definitely not going to happen. So if you want to go watch that video, the first like 2 minutes have a really funny gag with me playing my ocarina. So that's funny. Other than that, I'm going to basically summarize what I talked about in that video here in the next few minutes. And then I'm going to go over what I was going to talk about with the Korok. And then I'm going to talk about basically where we stand now as far as my predictions with Age of Calamity. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so in my first video, I'm basically trying to argue two things. Number one, that the timeline which Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom in are not the same timeline that all of the other Zelda games take place in, like that long timeline with the 3 splits and Ocarina of Time breaks everything. I don't think Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are a part of that. That's the first thing I'm really trying to argue in my original video. And then the other thing I'm trying to argue is because these games, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, are not in that other timeline, then that means that the Fi that we see in Skyward Sword from that timeline doesn't necessarily happen in the timeline that we see Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom in. So if those are two different timelines, that means that this Master Sword where we see Skyward Sword isn't necessarily the same Master Sword we see in Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. And because it's a different Master Sword in Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, that means that we might see the construct be the creation, or not be the creation. Yes, let me just make that a different bullet point. So this second bullet point basically saying that we can see another creation of the Master Sword, that being this different Master Sword that's in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Okay, that's bullet point number 2. Then the third thing I'm kind of trying to argue, if you accept those first 2 bullet points, the third thing I'm arguing is, okay, we heard Fi's theme in the first trailer where the construct was revealed. So if the construct is going to be Fi, in the same way that the Zonai Rauru is Rauru from Ocarina of Time, right? Like they're both named Rauru, they're both Sages of Light. Clearly they're not the same characters though. That's how I imagine the construct would be in relation to Fi. They would both be Fi, they would both be the Master Sword, but they're not the exact same character because this is a different timeline. So it's a different Master Sword, so it's a different Fi, but in essence, yes, the construct would be Fi. And what that would mean was that the construct would literally like transform. We saw it transform into the plane. It would literally transform into the sword and then get upgraded to the Master Sword. That's what I was trying to argue. Clearly, that did not happen. And now continuing from that, in this video, what we were going to talk about was how if the construct is becoming the physical Master Sword, then that means someone has to wield the Master Sword. And this video was going to talk about how that character to wield the Master Sword would be none other than the brave Korok. It was going to be an incredible prediction, but it's not going to happen because of the latest trailer that came out. Part of my prediction, the wrong prediction that I'm talking about right now, part of that was going to be, okay, maybe you can select the Korok as your character, and then you can choose, am I going to use the Forest Dweller sword? And in that case, you would play as the Korok with the Forest Dweller sword. Or maybe you could choose a Zonai sword. And then if you chose the Zonai sword, you would be playing as the construct character with the Korok riding on the back of that construct. Basically, the only thing that really made me think of that was there's like a screenshot in the trailer where the construct's flying around. The Korok's on the back of him. The other thing that got me thinking the Korok might be the wielder of the Master Sword, the wielder of the weapon Korok. Sorry, the weapon construct. The thing that got me thinking that was actually this baby right here, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. I thought it was going to be a reference to that because in the beginning of Ocarina of Time, when you start up, you're playing as young Link, and he, at least he thinks, he's a Kokiri. He thinks he's a little forest person. And so technically that version of Link is a forest dweller, a Kokiri, right? And what happened to the Kokiri? Well, in Wind Waker, we know that the Kokiri people ended up somehow evolving into the Koroks. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe this is a reference referring to Link being a Kokiri in Ocarina of Time. And so that's why now we're playing as a Korok. And that Korok is actually the spirit of the hero, not literally going to call itself Link, but some sort of hero essence. And then also they call the Korok the brave Korok. What's another word for brave? Courageous. What is courage? The part of the Triforce that Link wields is the Triforce of courage. So I'm like, brave Korok, courageous Korok, it has to be connected. The Korok is actually Link. But that whole part that I said about maybe the Korok is using the construct as a weapon and they're kind of like the same character and it just depends on which weapon you pick. Well, it's totally disproven because we can see there's a section of the trailer where they go through sync strikes. They show all the hands clapping together, all the different sync strikes you can have, and then it shows little snippets of each sync strike. And there's one sync strike that clearly has the construct and the Korok. So I'm assuming this game is going to play exactly the way it worked in Fire Emblem Warriors. Maybe it'll be a little easier to pull off because it was kind of annoying to have to like pause, have them link up, do your special, then unlink them, and then assign them to go to their separate ways. So hopefully it'll be a little more fluid, but I think that basically confirms these are two separate characters, definitely not the same character. And then the last thing that confirmed to me that this Korok wasn't going to be some version of Link was the description they posted on X or on Twitter was basically saying like, the Korok's looking for some place to lay down its roots. And I'm like, okay, this is not Link. This is now the Great Deku Tree. And so that's part of my revised predictions that we should be getting into right here. All right, so after all of these things that have been revealed, where do we stand now? So for one, this Korok and the Construct, definitely two separate characters. Like I had just mentioned, I do think the Korok is the Great Deku Tree, based on that little statement that Nintendo released saying that it wants to look for a place to lay down its roots. That might be just a pun, because it's a plant-like creature laying down its roots. It's really just like a nomad, like a traveling Korok. But I think it is possible that maybe this Korok is the Great Deku Tree, and we're going to see the Great Deku Tree get born somewhere. Okay, the second thing about my official prediction, and this is probably the most important thing because all of this prediction with the Zonai that I'm going to get into, basically it relies on this bullet point, which is that the timeline of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is not anywhere related to the timeline that existed before this that we know with all of the other games. They are totally separate timelines. So I put this picture up at the beginning of the video, but I'm putting it again here. This is official from Nintendo at some convention, I don't remember where, and I wasn't there. This is just, I remember the news coming out on it. But they clearly place Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom separate from everything else. Okay, and mind you, when Echoes of Wisdom came out, they did place Echoes of Wisdom on the timeline, the pre-existing timeline. So it wasn't just, oh, well, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are the latest games, so we don't know where to put them. No, they intentionally put Echoes of Wisdom somewhere, and they intentionally moved Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom off. So I do think it was on purpose. And so this basically invalidates all of the arguments saying, well, Fi can't exist in this game because she already existed in Skyward Sword. That's not true. That did not happen in this version of Hyrule. People saying that the Korok can't be the Deku Tree because the Koroks have to exist after the Kokiri. That's not true, because that didn't happen in this universe. So that's where I stand. The more I look into it, the more confident I am that this timeline with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is intentionally separate from the rest. All right, easy peasy. That answers who the Korok is. So now, who is this construct? It's got to be Link, right? It's definitely Link. Looks like Link. Has a sword, got a shield. It's definitely Link. Well, no. I still personally don't think so. I refuse to think that it is Link. I refuse to think that it is the spirit of the hero. So reincarnation. Some people are saying the ancient hero, because they're both kind of Zonai related. Dude, the ancient hero is a organic being, and this is clearly a robot. So I don't think it's the ancient hero. I don't think it's Link. What is it? So the way I see it, this construct can be one of three things. Okay, number one, it is just a mindless robot that needs to be controlled by another character. At first I thought that Korok might be the one controlling it, but we can rule it out now. There was footage before only of the Korok riding the construct while it was flying, but now we have more footage and we can see they're clearly two separate characters. So rule out option one. Option two, I think this is the popular option online, and that is that the construct is being inhabited by a spirit. That being maybe the spirit of the sword, maybe the spirit of the hero, maybe the spirit of Link. I guess those are the same thing. But that's popular opinion. I don't agree with that one, okay? The third option is that the construct is just an artificial intelligence. And we do have other constructs that are like this, but they're all like really dumb. They just have like one program task. I think this construct has an artificial intelligence that is far more advanced. Okay, so we're gonna get into that. All right, but before we get into that, I want to go over why I don't think option two is the right answer. So either spirit of the hero or spirit of the sword. And I think a lot of people are on that train because we see Minoru possess her construct, right? She has her spirit from the past, she put it into the Purpad, and then she moved from the Purpad into her construct. And so everyone's like, okay, well, we see like that a construct can be embodied by a spirit. And so I think that's why that's the popular opinion. But here's the thing. Minoru is the sage of spirit. So it's literally her power to be able to move her spirit into things. That doesn't mean that every other construct has that same ability. And there's several constructs we see in the game. So we have the little like mini constructs like these, which aren't embodied by a spirit. They're just programmed to do a thing like forage or mine or train. And then we have even Minoru's construct. Link can ride it and control it. And then we see when you unlock Minoru's construct, there is the boss construct, like Minoru's original construct, which I think we will see in Age of Imprisonment. I'm pretty sure that's confirmed. It's got 4 arms instead of 2. So that construct is possessed by Gloom. So that one doesn't count because Gloom has already been seen to be able to possess things. And I don't think that's the same as moving a spirit into it. And then I think there is one more construct being the boss battle with Master Koga. But it's been a while since I've played this, so I can't remember if he just made a bunch of Zonai cars and stuff. I know there are many bosses like that, but I feel like the last one is an actual construct, but I just can't really remember. I'm going to try to find footage and I'll put that up on here if I do find it. So we actually have more experience of non-spirit entity constructs than we do spirit-controlled constructs. Minoru is the only one that is spirit-controlled. And so that takes us back to option number 1, or 3, I don't remember how I numbered them, the better option, the option that the construct is just an artificial intelligence. But this is going to tie back to Skyward Sword. So in Skyward Sword, Phi was a gift left by the gods. And that spirit for the Master Sword was a gift from the gods in the form of the Goddess Sword, and then it got enhanced to become the Master Sword. So a gift from the gods turned into a sword left in the forest. I think this game's doing the same thing. I think that construct is a gift from the gods. Now in this universe, the gods are not literally gods, they are ancient Zonai before Rauru and Minoru. And so those ancient Zonai, otherwise known as gods, left an AI conscious soldier, super advanced AI that it is practically humanoid, right? That is practically a person because of how advanced this AI is. And then that construct is going to help forge the Master Sword, And then with this Korok hero that we also have in Age of Imprisonment, he's going to end up leaving the sword with that Korok. That Korok will become the Great Deku Tree, and now we have the Master Sword in the forest like we know it. And what do you know? So we got this from the trailer. We've got a little screenshot of the Zonai construct, and look on his back. There is definitely something, and it's not just your average little sword, like lightsaber type sword that you see. And so I was wondering, is this not, like, is this a physical sword? But then we also have other pictures like this one, where it's clearly he's got the lightsaber sword. So I don't know what is on his back here. I think it's maybe like the cover that you put the sword in. I don't know, but I think it is a more unique sword, and I think that is evidence that this will be the Zonai sword that gets upgraded to the Master Sword. I think this is evidence in favor of my theory. What do you think? So I think that works. I think that makes sense. And again, tying to Skyward Sword, gift from the gods, Phi talks robotic, talks about all these numbers. Phi is essentially an AI, but they made it a more mystical fantasy setting, whereas Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are more kind of like a cyberpunk, techie, sci-fi take on the Zelda series, right? And so in this version, this rebooted version of the Zelda universe, I think that's how they're explaining the same event. The event of the creation of the Master Sword in Skyward Sword is through Phi. In this universe, it's going to be through that ancient, mysterious construct. I think it's going to work. I also want to bring up this. This came up as a comment in my last video. It's technically secondhand evidence, not firsthand evidence, but they say that in Zelda notes, we are told that the constructs were not created by Rauru and Minoru. They were actually created before Rauru and Minoru, and that Minoru is just studying them. So this supports what I'm saying, that the construct that we're going to see in Age of Imprisonment was given by the gods, which are aka the Zonai before Rauru and Minoru. So I realized while I was doing that last clip that I'm not sure if it's common knowledge that the gods of this universe were actually Zonai. I've always understood it that way. So I'm going to explain why I think that, and maybe in the future this will be a bigger video, but I've always, since playing Tears of the Kingdom, have thought, oh my gosh, okay, the gods weren't actually gods, they were these ancient Zonai that we're now being introduced to. There's a specific scene, actually 2 scenes, so I'm going to pull them up here, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about and why I think this rebooted universe is kind of telling you, hey, the gods that you thought you knew from the Zelda timeline weren't actually gods, they were actually Zonai. Okay, let's listen to this.
Allow me to offer you my deepest apologies. It is my honor. When your Zonai ancestors first descended upon these lands long, long ago, they must have seemed to be gods.
Right there!
And now you rule as
And the next video is from an earlier memory called Minoru's Council.
It is quite an interesting device. There are stories about the secret stones and a forbidden act called draconification. To swallow a secret stone is to become an immortal dragon, one blessed with eternal life.
Okay, so in those clips, we see that Ganondorf refers to the ancient Zonai as being as gods. We also see that the 3 dragons, which are referring to the 3 gods that we learn about in Ocarina of Time, were essentially ancient Zonai that went through that process of draconification. Before we went over those things, I was showing how Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are in a separate continuity. So the Skyward Sword events have not happened. The Master Sword doesn't have to have already been created. And we know that those ancient Zonai might have left this mysterious construct, and that is going to be a retelling of what we saw in Skyward Sword, which is that Master Sword being created. Alright, and even though Skyward Sword did not technically happen in this version of Hyrule, like I just discussed, that doesn't mean that the sword doesn't have a consciousness. We actually see that in here. They don't say that it's Phi, but they do show this consciousness. So I'm going to pull up that scene right here. I think it's in Memory 15, so let's take a look.
Master Sword. You're telling me that Link is safe? You traveled through time to find me and recover your strength.
In this next one, we're going to see that Zelda refers to the sword as she, not just it.
Link, the Master Sword, your sword. She is the key to destroying the Demon King.
So I think that's super important. When we see pictures like this one, a lot of people, including me, thought, okay, this construct is clearly masculine. That's why we think it's Link. But then this picture came up in the latest trailer. Check this one out. And either I'm crazy because of this theory, or it might actually be true, but the construct looks very feminine here. Look at the eyes. It has eyelashes, which is, as a like cartoon type of thing, that's kind of an easy way to identify female versus male, is to make them have more pronounced eyelashes. And I don't know why you would need eyelashes on a robot, unless you're trying to show that it's female. And then the hair, I know we thought, okay, well the hair is long, Link's like sideburns are very long, and so this way, that's why it kind of looks like Link. But in this shot, it looks extremely long, like unnaturally long, more than Link's. And I think it is long hair because it's gonna be female, and I think there's gonna be a scene where the hood comes off of this construct, and it is just a super plot twist that, oh my gosh, this construct is actually female, which is why it's actually the sword, which is why Zelda refers to it as she now, because she has actually met the AI that is in the sword. Now, the last piece of evidence I have is simply this. I'm going to use fuse on the Master Sword, and everyone is aware of this. You see the fused item disappear, and I've got the Zonai runes and script on the Master Sword. This tells me the Master Sword is clearly Zonai in origin. I think the Zonai created this Master Sword because the Zonai are the gods. But I think in Age of Imprisonment, like I've been saying, I think that construct is the AI that will be in the sword that has talked to Zelda in both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. And we're gonna see that construct forge this Master Sword and then place its AI inside the sword. So I'm just going to summarize it up one more time. The ancient Zonai, they left the construct. That construct is going to help forge a new Master Sword. It's going to leave its AI consciousness inside of the Master Sword, and then it's going to leave the Master Sword with the brave Korok. That brave Korok will find its place in the forest, lay down its roots, become the Great Deku Tree, with the Master Sword being protected with the Great Deku Tree there, and then in the future of that period, the future which would be 10,000 years in the past from Breath of the Wild, the ancient hero is going to pick up that sword, beat the first calamity, put the sword back in the forest, and then in Breath of the Wild, Link picks it up there again. But we essentially will see it be created in Age of Imprisonment through the form of this construct. But what do you think? I want to hear in the comments, do you think the construct is containing the spirit of Fi, or the Master Sword, spirit of the hero? Do you think it is an ancient consciousness, like me? So 3 options: spirit of the hero, spirit of Fi, ancient AI consciousness that will be the Master Sword. And what about the Korok? Do you think it's just a random Korok trying to find a place to settle down, or do you think it is going to be the Great Deku Tree? Okay, leave your ideas down in the comments. I will read them because I only get a few watches since I'm so new, so I will read them and I will try to respond. And then the other thing I want to ask, if you think this is an incredible theory, obviously I do because I came up with it. If you think it's an awesome theory, send it to someone. Like, imagine if one of those big Zelda YouTubers got a hold of this and then actually did good editing and actually found better evidence. Like, imagine them using my video as a reference. That would be super awesome for me. So if you feel the urge to send this to someone, a friend or a YouTuber that does Zelda content, I would super appreciate it. Thanks again. And if you are still watching here at the end of the video, first of all, thank you for watching. But also let me know in the comments if you're making it all the way through, because, you know, as in the YouTuber studio thing, you see all the numbers of people watching, but only a small fraction actually make it all the way through. And you don't really get that number. So if you can let me know in the comments that you made it all the way through, that is super helpful for me. But I also want to say, just stay tuned, because there's a lot more video concepts I have. I'm thinking of maybe doing one on the timeline and just talking more about how I think they're two separate continuities. And then 2 other videos I'm really excited about are my thoughts on where the next 2 Zelda games could go. I have my ideas, and I'm super excited to get those out. I want to try to get them out before Age of Imprisonment comes out, just in case something in there messes up those videos. So I'm excited for those 2, but I don't only want to do Zelda content on this channel, it just so happens to line up with Age of Imprisonment's release, but I also am planning a video for the Pikmin stuff that came out, the Pikmin update. I love Pikmin. So I want to do a video on that, and then, you know, maybe Kirby Air Ride is really big, maybe a review of Donkey Kong. I'm finishing that game up. I've got other stuff that I want to do, so definitely stay tuned. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.